be seated. All right, now we're going to proceed to pray for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And I snuck out of the house with my Kansas City stuff on, much to Tammy's dismay. Pray for our marriage, that it'll be all right when we get home. Hey guys, I hope that you heard the announcement about the chili cook-off tonight, and you'll come. It'll be after the Chiefs win, and we can be here and celebrate together. I don't know, Tammy revealed to me on Facebook yesterday there was some trash talk, and I can't wait to see how it comes out and to see who really does what. And I'm guys, you don't have to make chili to come. Just be like me. Just come eat it and judge. And I am bribable. You can bribe me for your vote. So go ahead. It'll be a good night, and I hope you'll come. Last week we started this sermon series from Proverbs chapter 4, and I want to read to you the verses that we looked at yesterday. Proverbs chapter 4 and verses 25 through 27. Look at what it says. Look straight ahead. That's where we get this idea about focus, about having a 2020 focus for 2020. Look straight ahead. Fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil. Last week we talked about fixing your focus, following your focus, and fighting for your focus. And it is a fight every day. You've got to stay focused. If you're going to go anywhere in your walk with God, you've got to fight for your focus, because we tend to stray. And so today we're going to go on from there and have some help about how to live a focused life. And today we're going to spend some time talking about what should be the real focal point for our lives as believers. Again, we're talking about believers. We're talking about going somewhere in our walks with God. We're talking about having an intentionality, because here's what I can tell you. If you aim for nothing, you're going to hit it every time. So where are you going this year? What are you doing to get there? What do you want God to do in your life? What are you hungry for? What are you looking toward? Where is your focus? And today we're going to talk about that focal point, where it really begins. If you read the Gospels, you'll see that Jesus spent a great deal of time debunking the lies of the religious leaders. And he addressed things that they were teaching that were wrong, and he brought them back to truth. He debunked their lies about God. One of the things that Jesus corrected, that the religious leaders of that day taught, was a wrong approach to God that was from the outside in. In other words, religion. You see, they had made the focus the outside. In other words, if you follow God, obey these rituals, keep your outward act together, keep up your appearances, follow the rules, keep the rituals, on and on and on. But Jesus came along and said, that's not it. That's just not it. It's not just the outside that matters. It's what's on the inside that matters. Look at what Jesus said in Matthew's Gospel. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees. He's talking to the religious leaders of that day. And he probably never got invited over for chicken after church. He said, hypocrites, you're so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you're filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee. First you wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside. And we saw them in Israel when we were there. There would be tombs that are built up. They're above ground, and they're beautiful. They're white. They look nice. But inside, they're filled with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly, you look like righteous people. You follow the stuff. You do the religious motions. But inwardly, your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. And so that's the way Jesus came against them. But all through the years, it's still a fight to come back to the truth. It's not about the outside. It's all about the inside that matters. And we still default to that outward appearance. It's everywhere in our day, still today. We put a smile on. We go through the motions of religious activity. We portray we're doing great, but that's the outside, and that's what we want others to focus on. All the while, we know that it's not the inward reality. And one of the results of that approach to God, that's a lie, that it will ever get you to God, is that people have thought all through the years as a result of that if you're going to come to church and you're going to be religious, you've got to have it all together. You've got to keep up the appearance. You got to check the boxes. You got to do the things. And so we just feed into it. They thought and still think if you have problems and issues and struggles in this day, that Jesus came along, and the reason he corrected the lie, he said people were thinking if you have those kinds of things going on, they couldn't bring that into the house of God and be real. And they bought into an approach that focused on the outside. And I want to help you to understand today, and I pray you'll hear me. If you're going to get anywhere in your walk with God in 2020, you can't be focused on the outside and polishing it up. You got to have an inward focus. We're going to talk about that today. Matter of fact, I want to start with a verse from 1 Samuel. In this verse, God had said to the prophet, I want you to go to Jesse's house, and he's got some sons, and one of his sons is going to be the future king of Israel. And so one stood before the prophet, and he must have been tall and good looking and had it all together, kind of like myself. And he probably had the outward of appearance, that he just had it going on. And so the prophet thought, man, that must be the future king. And God said, no. And here's what he said. The Lord said to Samuel, don't judge by his outward appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord doesn't see things the way that you see them. People judge by outward appearance, but God looks at the what? The heart. It's not the outside, it's the inside. And we've got to take that in. We've got to understand where our focus needs to be. I read to you 3 verses from the end of Proverbs, but if you go back up just a couple of verses to verse 23 in Proverbs chapter 4, look at what the Bible says. Guard your what above all else? In other words, focus on your heart. Guard your heart above anything and everything else, because the outward doesn't matter. And here's why. Here's why it's so important to focus on your heart more than anything, because it determines the course of your life. In other words, the Bible talks about the heart more than 900 times. I would say it's a big deal to God, wouldn't you? The Bible talks about the heart over 900 times, 70 sometimes just in the book of Proverbs. And when the Bible talks about the heart, he's not talking about that blood pumping muscle in your chest. He's talking about the seat of your being, where you make your choices, where character is built. It's talking about where life flows from. It's talking about where worship is giving. It's talking about that place of that constitutes who you really are. Do you know in other cultures, when they referred to the seat of someone's being, it's not always the heart. In some cultures, it's the liver or the kidneys or the stomach or something like that. Can you imagine saying, I love you with all my liver? God's Word talks about something different. It says, who you really are is determined by who you are in your heart. Above all else, focus on your heart, because that's what God's going to go by. It's not the outward. You can't fool God. It's not just the outward. I remember when our daughter turned 16, she was ready to drive. We were looking at some different cars for her, and she saw the red one. And the red one was a piece of junk. But she wanted the red one. And I couldn't talk her out of the red one. Heather wanted the red one. It doesn't matter what's under the hood. I want the red one. Going by the outward appearance. And isn't that what we do? It's not the outward that matters. So today, here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this process that God takes us through. If you are somebody that's focused on the outward and you just can't fix that, what is the process that He takes you through to get you to focus on what really matters, your heart? That's what I want to talk about today. And it's a process you're not going to want to hear about. I'm just promising. As a matter of fact, if you'd have known the topic before you got out on a cold, snowy day, you might have stayed home. Isn't that encouraging? How's that for an intro? But I want to talk about the process of... Last week I gave you a word you didn't like, and it was a D word, and it was... This week I want to give you a word you're not going to like, and it's a B word, and it is brokenness. Not popular, especially in a culture, in a society today, and even in the church realm. Even in the church, are you hearing me? Even where? In church. We are programmed for happiness, not holiness. We're focused on happiness and not holiness. But God's primary agenda is the heart, where character is built. And if we're not focused there, here's what God will do. He'll take us through this process to get your focus where it needs to be. And that didn't really translate a lot because we live in a throwaway culture, don't we? We don't fix anything anymore. How many TV repair shops do you see ever know? When I was growing up, we had a couple in town. We did. In a town of 2,000, we had 2 TV repair shops. You don't see them anymore, do you? What do? Throw it away. We live in a throwaway culture. Broken things don't have any value. If something is broken, the value declines. But that's not the way it is in Scripture. We're going to see in Scripture that God says the most beautiful thing that He sees in somebody's life is what comes out and through their life and in their life through the process of brokenness. And He says, broken is beautiful. I want to show you. I could point to so many passages of Scripture. I want to show you one. And it's not going to come up on the screen. Get out this. Remember these? Luke chapter 7. I want to read you a few verses. You pull it up on your iPad. you have to swipe off your grocery list, but pull it up on your iPad and close out the game and focus with me from Luke chapter 7. I want to try to tell you this story. I mean, this passage just absolutely gripped me this week. I want to try to tell you this story as we go along and help you to set the scene. Luke chapter 7, and we'll begin at, that's too small. It's either 38 or 36. I don't know which one it is. Is it 36? Okay, it looked like an 8. All right, here we go. One of the Pharisees, and we're going to read, his name's Simon. He asked Jesus to have dinner with him. So, in other words, he was fulfilling what would have been a custom in that day. When the rabbi come to town, the religious leader would invite the rabbi to come into his home, and they would spend time together. So he invited him to dinner. In his home, the Pharisee invited Jesus into his home. And Jesus went in his home and sat down to eat. When a certain immoral woman, in other words, a prostitute. So, now get this picture. Jesus is having a meal in a home of a Pharisee, and now look who comes in. A prostitute. How's that going to set? Anybody know anything about Pharisees? They're religious snots. And here comes the Pharisee, or here comes this prostitute into the home of this Pharisee, and look at what she does. She heard he was eating there, and she brought a beautiful alabaster jar filled with expensive perfume. Maybe a jar she had used from the night before to attract a man. I don't know. But evidently, she had heard Jesus teach somewhere. She had heard him say some things. She had heard him give a message. Because she is risking everything to go into this home of a Pharisee and do what she is recorded for in Scripture. She knelt behind him at his feet. Jesus would have been reclined at a table, feet out, as was the custom of that day. And this prostitute kneels at his feet. And she was weeping. Her tears fell on his feet. And she wiped them off with her hair. Now, here's the thing. As she was doing that, she saw that her tears were falling down on his feet, making mud. She said, what am I going to do? She lets down her hair. The Bible says that a woman's hair is her glory. In that day, for a woman to let down her hair would have only been done in an intimate setting with her and her husband. She lost all care for how she looked. She let down her hair and wiped his feet off with her hair. And she kept kissing his feet and pouring perfume on them. And when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, now this is interesting. He said to himself, your translation might say, he thought to himself. He did not speak it out loud, but he thought to himself. If this man were a prophet, he would know what kind of woman is touching him. She's a sinner. And Jesus, he did what? He answered his thoughts. Simon was just thinking it. Jesus knew it. And he said, well, I'm going to speak to it. You may not have voiced it, but Jesus knows. Oh, good grief. This is good. Better than I thought it was going to be. Something else. Okay. Jesus said, Simon, I have something to say to you. Go ahead, teacher, Simon replied. And Jesus told him the story. A man loaned money to two people, 500 pieces of silver to one and 50 pieces to the other, but neither of them could repay him. So he kindly forgave them both, canceling their debts. Who do you suppose loved him more after that? Simon answered, I suppose the one who was forgiven the larger debt. Makes sense, doesn't it? Jesus said, that's right. And he turned to the woman and said to Simon, look at this woman kneeling here. When I entered your home, you didn't offer me water to wash the dust from my feet, which was the custom of that day. When you entered the home, you would either do it yourself or have a servant do it, wash the feet, because there'd be dust on them from traveling, whoever came into the house. But she has washed them with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You, Simon, you didn't do that. You didn't greet me with a kiss. We come in and we shake hands. In that day, you were greeted with a kiss on the cheek or a kiss on your hand. Simon didn't do that either. But from the time I came in, she's not stopped kissing my feet. You neglected the courtesy of olive oil, and it was also the custom of that day. If you really wanted to treat someone as a special guest, you would put olive oil on their head. Simon didn't do that either. I tell you, her sins, and there are many, have been forgiven. And so she has shown me much love. But a person who is forgiven little shows only little love. In other words, Simon, you just don't get it because all you're focused on is the outward. She's got something going on internally that she's focused on. Jesus turned to the woman and said, your sins are forgiven. The men at the table said among themselves, who is this man that he goes around forgiving sins? And Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. So here we go. Listen, I'm setting you up for a question. Listen close. Ready? You've got Simon the Pharisee over here looking at this woman saying, Jesus, if you only knew who she was. And you've got a prostitute over here who knows who she is and knows what she needs. And she's broken and just worshiping Jesus at his feet. Now, look at me. Here's the question. You ready? Who would you rather be? I'm not asking you who you are, because there's some snots in here. And I'm not asking for an open confession, because the reality is some of you act more like Simon than you do the prostitute. Let's just be honest, right? Could I tell you about something that just drove that home one time? Tammy and I, we're in church. I have been pouring out my life to this couple. He was an addict. They were living together. But you know what? Addicts and people that are immoral and do it wrong still need Jesus, don't they? So I shared the gospel with them, got saved, got married, had a baby. They didn't have anything. And you know what? They were known. But they were coming through and God was doing the work. They were broken and God was doing something. I watched them as they came into church one Sunday, and I happened to be back there. And it's a big church. It just happened to be I was at the right place at the right, or maybe the wrong time for this other couple. But anyway, I watched them as they came in, and this couple that were the addicts didn't have anything in this world. And I mean, they were messed up and they knew it. They walked up and they were going to show this newborn baby to one of the couples in our church. And I watched as that couple turned their back. It's thinking still ticks me off. I'm mad. You know what you do when and I'm telling you, it was bad. So I went over and got them, and I said, you come up and sit with me right now. Brought them to the front row, brought them up on the stage and introduced them and their new baby. I let her rip on that Sunday too. I was preaching mad. Do you know what you do when you preach mad? You shoot at anything that moves. I'm telling you, you just let her rip. I was shooting at anything that moved. I was ticked. You're not going to be a Simon in front of me and me not say nothing. But I want to ask you, who do you want to be? You want to be this one? Or do you want to be this one? The real answer is, because I know you, and you go to church and you're just like me. Here's what we want to be. We want to be both. We want to be well respected, seen as okay on all the outward focus. And we want to be blessed and commended by Jesus like this woman was. But we don't want to go to the process to get from there to here. And that's what I'm talking about today. And I want to give you this word first. Here's your first fill in. It took a long time to get there. And this is not good English. But hang with me, okay? We are all broke. And I don't mean financially. We're broke. I know the proper term is broken. I get it, if we were going to say it right. Hang with me, though. Just go with, you're broke. We are all broke. Now, some of us, like this Pharisee, don't realize that. We think we're okay. And we see others as broken, like he saw this woman as broken. And he's sitting there looking at her and saying, she is a mess. She should be embarrassed. And here's the reality. No, he should be embarrassed. You see, the problem with Simon is that he is broke and doesn't realize it. Therefore, he's not broken. You evidently didn't hear me because that was good. Listen, the problem with Simon is that he's broke. All he's got is outward religion. He's a mess on the inside, and he proved that by his condescending attitude toward the prostitute. He's broke. He's a mess, but he's not broken. And the reason he's not broken is because of his refusal to admit he's broke. That's pretty deep stuff, isn't it? And there's some that come to church Sunday after Sunday, and you're a mess, but you don't want to admit it. You're focused on the outside. You're trying to keep up the outside, but the reality is your religion is not working. Let me tell you how much of a mess Simon was. By the time a Jewish boy was 12 years old, he would have Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy memorized. He would know the Old Testament well, that foretold 300 prophecies about the coming Messiah. And here is the Messiah in his house, and he doesn't even recognize him. That's how messed up Simon is. It's just like people that come to church Sunday after Sunday and Jesus is in the house and you don't even know it. I mean, you're checking, you're doing your bulletin, you're doing your stuff, you're doing the outward, you're going through the motions, and Jesus is trying to get through to you, and he can't get through to you because you don't even recognize the fact that He's here, and open yourself to Him. You see, God wants to work in all of our lives in such a way we shift our focus from all that's out here and focus on what's reality in here. And then we'll realize how broke we are and become broken. But we get hung up there. Deep down, here's what we want to be: Simon, not the woman. I don't want to be like that. What's people going to think? Simon was broke but not broken. The woman was broken and knew she was broke. Admitted it. I tell people all the time that I really gauge a lot of things based on somebody's reactions more than their actions. Because I'm telling you, you've got a flesh that still resides in you, and you could be that prostitute at any given moment. Get off your holy high horse, isn't that right? And I watch what people do, not if they fail, but when they fail. It's biblical. I read an article about the power of vulnerability this week. And it talked about how we all need a place where we can be vulnerable. It talked about how deep down we really long for that, a safe place. But we just don't do it because we are not willing to admit how broken we are. How broke we are. Listen to a little portion of that article. We are those people. That's the truth. Most of us are one paycheck, one divorce, one drug-addicted kid, one mental health diagnosis, one serious illness, one sexual assault, one drinking binge, one night of unprotected sex, or one affair from being those people. You know, the ones we don't trust, the ones that you take out pity on, the ones we don't let our children play with, the ones bad things happen to, the ones who we don't want living next door. We are those people. We are them. Look around. We're all broke. There's not one person in this room who's not broke. And the one that wants to say, I'm not broke, is the brokest of all. We are all those people. The question is, here's the question. Are you ready? Are you broken over the fact that you're broke? Because you're broke. You are so broke. You may be broke like Simon the Pharisee, or you may be broke like this woman, the prostitute, but you're broke. Are you so broken that you're willing to see and deal with whatever it is in your life that has made you broken? Someone says, why are you making such an emphasis about this? Why are you trying to drive this home? Who are you talking to? Nobody. Just anybody to listen. Nobody in particular. It could be me. It could be you. It could be all of us. It could be. It just hit me this week as I studied this. It hit me here, and then it hit me here, and it hit me here, and I'm banged up and bruised up, and it's everything. You say, why such a focus? Let me tell you why such a focus on this. Let me answer it with a question. Look on the screen. What if the hardest thing you ever had to go through could become the greatest thing that ever happened to you? What if that could happen? And here's how it happens. It doesn't happen over here. It happens over here. When I'm willing to admit, I am broke. It doesn't happen over here when I'm trying to pretend I'm okay. I'm good, man, I'm good. No, you're not, you're broke. You're just stupid. You can't fix stupid. Don't you know that was the hardest thing that woman ever had to do? Was go into the home of a Pharisee. Broken as she was, yet she got to the place, she said, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm broke and I need Jesus. That's why I share with people all the time. I share with a number of different people this week. The hardest day of my life turned into the greatest thing that ever happened to me. The hardest day of my life when I got caught, when my world came crashing in, when I was losing my family, and I came to this point, became the best day of my life. When I was willing to acknowledge, I'm not here, I'm not okay, I don't have it together, I'm broke, and I need fixed. Since then, I've had other times of brokenness that could easily be described as some of the hardest times anybody could ever go through. But they came out to be the most significant days in my walk with God. Why? Because I was willing to go through this process. And I don't care who you are. You're not going to get anywhere in 2020 or any other year of your life if you're not willing to go through this process. It can be the same for anyone. God can take your brokenness and do something through it. Do something significant. But here's what you got to do. You got to quit trying to hide your stuff and admit you're broke. When our granddaughter was real young, Tammy was babysitting for her. And I loved hearing the story. I wasn't there. I wish I could have been there. But Addie went and took some of Tammy's plastic flowers and pulled all the petals off. And then she went and took the plastic flowers and hid in a tent, a little tent that we had out in our sunroom. And Tammy went looking for Addie after a while, and there was Addie hiding in the tent. And the plastic flowers torn off the stems of those beautiful flowers. And Tammy looked at her, and Addie looked back with tears in her eyes and said, Baxter. Baxter's our dog. Baxter did it. And that's what we do. I don't want to go through this. I'll stand over here and say, Baxter. Proverbs 28 verse 13 says, it's not going to come up on the screen. If you quit trying to cover your sin and you just admit you're broke, you're going to prosper. Here's Kevin's paraphrase. Any sin you uncover, God will cover. Any sin you try to cover, God's going to uncover. It's going to come out. Be not deceived. God's not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that will he also reap. And you'll go through this process, but it's not going to be by your choosing. God's going to take you through the process, and he's going to break you. If you're a child of God, he's not going to tolerate the sin in your life. He's going to say, listen, you've got to get your focus back. You've got to get your focus back. You're out of focus. And if you don't respond to my conviction, in other words, when I'm whispering in your ear, get it right, 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 He'll turn up the heat. Would you just be willing to say, oh God, I prayed this week. God, what in me is broke? And here's what I got to tell you. I'm ashamed to say it. There was a list that I made that I'm very ashamed of. The list was way too long. But here's what I can tell you. When you go to God with that prayer and say, God, I want to see you in your holiness, like Isaiah 6. I want to see you, Lord. I want to see the Lord. I want to see you in your holiness. I want to see me in my wretchedness. I want to see what's broke in my life. You know how you'll emerge from there, just like Isaiah did in Isaiah 6. He cried out, woe is me! Not woe is them. Not woe is her. Not woe is him, but woe is me. I'm broke. If everybody would just be willing to say, I'm broke. We're broke. You are those people. We are those people. I am those people. Quit pretending. Quit acting like you're not broke. Quit playing the blame game. Quit trying to hide things. Quit worrying about what everyone else thinks. Get your focus back on what God focuses on. I'm telling you, there's something wonderful He wants to do. What is it? Second thing. I'm almost done, really. It's my first of 10 closes, I promise. Second thing. God works to mend our brokenness. The house Tammy and I bought 2.5 years ago after we were evicted from the previous house we were living in. The house we bought was completely remodeled before we moved in. I mean, it was gutted. Totally gutted. We have the before pictures. The previous owners, Mike and Lynn Haig, they went in and they gutted that thing. And they did it, and they did it good. They did it well. But man, it was a mess. They showed us the mess. Took pictures of all the messes they remodeled. I'm so glad they did it before I got there. They took out everything that was old, took out everything that was broken, lived in the mess, fixed the mess, and we got to reap the benefits of it. But in order for everything to be made new, and that's what remodeling is, you had to go through the dirty, disruptive, terrible tearing apart, taking out the old and the broken, and replacing it with the new. And the same thing happens spiritually. But we don't want that painful, disruptive mess of the remodel. We just want the new. You just look out into 2020 and you just want the new. God bless me. God bring the breakthrough. God just do something. And God said, yeah, I will, but we're going to go through this. You've got some things that's baggage that you brought from 2019 into 2020, and I don't like it. It doesn't look like Jesus, and so we're going to go through a process to help you identify what's really going on inside of you, because you may be okay with the outward, but I'm not. I'm looking at the inward of who you really are. And so He starts the process. And here's what we need to see. Brokenness is the road to breakthrough. Why is that? Because here's what brokenness is. It's the stripping away of whatever doesn't look like Jesus. It's dealing with anything in my life that shouldn't be there. It's a stripping away of all self-sufficiency and building in humility. It's getting me to the end of myself and doing my own thing. It's me finally and authentically surrendering all to Jesus and whatever He wants for my life. When we get to that place, A breakthrough's coming. When the Bible talks about being broken in Psalm 51, here's what it means. It means to be shattered. It means to be crushed. It means to be devoid of arrogance. It means to be wounded, contrite, injured, smashed, grieved, distressed, crippled, wrecked, demolished, fractured, and disabled. Why? Because that's the only way He can get our focus back to where it should be. And do you know what scares me to death? Is when I see people who claim to be God's people doing what they are, living in known sin, and they're not broken. Huh? Living in known sin. Saying it's not that big a deal. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. Here's one definition of brokenness I love. It's living in the constant state of God neediness. And when we get to that place, something big's going to happen in our lives. When we just live in a constant state of God neediness. Simon was here. He had it together. He didn't need. Prostitute was here. She was so aware of her neediness, she didn't care what anybody thought. Let me show you a biblical picture of Jeremiah 18. The Lord gave another message to Jeremiah. He said, go down to the potter's shop and I will speak to you there. So I did. And as he told me, I found the potter working at his wheel. But the jar he was making did not turn out as he hoped. He had the clay up there and it wasn't happening. So he crushed it into a lump of clay and started what? Started over. And the Lord gave me this message. Oh, Life Point Church, cannot God do for you the same thing that potter did with that lump of clay? Cannot God do for you the same thing? He can remake you when He has every right to throw the clay away. And that's all we are, is just a bunch of dust. Get over yourself. And when He would have every right to junk us, He says, come on, let's start all over. Aren't you thankful? And He says, let's do this process again. I can make something beautiful out of it. And that leads to the last thing. Out of brokenness comes blessing. In the 1500s in Japan, they started an art called kintsugi. If that's not how you pronounce it, come up here and pronounce it yourself. You know what it was? They would take ceramic pieces, and when they were broken, they would put them back together. But instead of just gluing them, they would put gold in the cracks and not try to hide the flaws, but they would highlight the flaws. And the outcome was these pieces of ceramic would become more valuable than they were before they were ever broken. Here's a piece. Solid gold. And it's just like what God says He'll do with us if we're willing to go from here to there. But the Pharisee, the religious snot that turned their back on the baby, the person that says, I'm all right, I've got it together. I hope so-and-so is listening to this. I hope they're getting it. No, you need it. And so does the one who thinks they've blown it so badly that they'll never have any value again. And God said, you're not so bad. Let's start all over. So who can stand apart from God's grace? Nobody. One of the word pictures for broken is this. It's a wild horse. When the horse hasn't been broken, he appreciates the owner giving him hay, giving him grain, giving him a barn, giving him shelter. But here's what that wild stallion says. Stay off my back. Right? Because the minute the cowboy tries to get on his back, he's going to buck. And it's such a picture of us, isn't it? God, I appreciate the shelter. I appreciate the food. I appreciate the blessings. Lord, bless me as we go into this year. I appreciate it all. But God, stay off my back. God, don't deal with me there. I've got this and I want it. I got this and I'm okay with it. Doesn't matter if you're okay with it. God doesn't give a rip if you're okay with it. You know that? God just doesn't care that you're okay with it. What matters is He okay with it. This morning as I was praying through John 15, God reminded me, man, the pathway to His increased work in my life in 2020 is not the pathway of happiness. It's the pathway of holiness. And He loves me enough to say, Kevin, I'm going to get out the shears because you see, I am the vine and you're just the branch. And I'm going to prune away. I'm going to cut away. I'm going to bring your attention to what I'm focusing on, because here's what I care about. And what I'm thankful for is that He loves me enough to do it. And to not leave me alone to become my own version of Simon the Pharisee. So I want to ask you, who are you today? Everyone in this room is one of these two persons. You're either Simon, you're either here, come on, think about it. Or you think, I'm okay. I'm not broke. I'm just not broke. I'm not that broke. Look at everybody else. I'm not broke. It's the devil. Woe is me. Woe is me. Woe is me. You're either here, and you're going to end this service right now. You're going to end this service either right here or right here. Father, in the name of Jesus, Lord, would you break us? Would you help us to realize how broken we are? Would you help us to realize